Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON DVD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Gauri Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giridhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Angaranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 24, Text 31. Tanyeva te bhirūpāṇi. Tanyeva te bhirūpāṇi. Rūpāṇi bhagavaṁs tava. Rūpāṇi bhagavaṁs tava. Yāni yāni ca rocante. Yāni yāni ca rocante. Sva-janānām arūpiṇaḥ. Sva-janānām arūpiṇaḥ. What's correct? Is it Tanyeva or is it Tanyeva? Tanya, okay. Tanyeva te bhirūpāṇi. Rūpāṇi bhagavaṁs tava. Yāni yāni ca rocante. Sva-janānām arūpiṇaḥ. Tanyeva. Vaishnavis. Tāny, those, eva, truly, te, your, abhirūpāṇi, suitable, rūpāṇi, forms, bhagavan, O Lord, tava, your, yāni, whichever, cha, and, rocante, are pleasing, sva-janānām, to your own devotees, arūpiṇaḥ, of one with no material form. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear Lord, although you have no material form, you have your own innumerable forms. They truly are your transcendental forms, which are pleasing to your devotees. Purport. In the Brahma-saṁhitā, it is stated that the Lord is one absolute, but He has ananta, or innumerable forms. Advaitam, acyutam, anādim, ananta-rūpam. The Lord is the original form, but still He has multiforms. Those multiforms are manifested by Him transcendentally, excuse me, according to the taste of His multi-devotees. It is understood that once Hanuman, the great devotee of Lord Rāmacandra, said that he knew that Nārayaṇa, the husband of Lakṣmī, and Rāma, the husband of Sītā, are one and the same, and that there is no difference between Lakṣmī and Sītā, but as for himself, he liked the form of Lord Rāma. In a similar way, some devotees worship the original form of Krishna. When we say Krishna, and you can see it there, it's in inverted commas there, we refer to all forms of the Lord, not only Krishna, but Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, etc. The varieties of transcendental forms exist simultaneously. That is also stated in the Brahma-saṁhitā. Rāmādi-mūrtiṣu non-avataram. He already exists in multi-forms, but none of the forms are material. Śrīdhara Svāmī has commented that arūpiṇaḥ, without form, means without material form. The Lord has form, otherwise, how can it be stated here, tānyeva te bhirūpāṇi, rūpāṇi bhagavaṁs tava. You have your forms, but they are not material. Materially, you have no form, but spiritually, transcendentally, you have multi-forms. Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand these transcendental forms of the Lord, and being disappointed, they say that the Supreme Lord is impersonal. But that is not a fact. Wherever there is form, there is a person. Many times in many Vedic literatures, the Lord is described as Purusha, which means the original form, the original enjoyer. The conclusion is that the Lord has no material form, and yet, according to the liking of different grades of devotees, He simultaneously exists in multi-forms, such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, Nārāyaṇa and Mukunda. There are many thousands and thousands of forms, but they are all viṣṇu-tattva, Krishna. Om Ganatam Adandasha Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamyam Dadati Swapadantikam. So this is Kardama Muni speaking, and he's making this point because, well, I don't know what he was thinking, but it's an important point to be made because a lot of times people, even people on the spiritual path, don't understand this point. They don't understand that Krishna has no material form. There's people who are, quote-unquote, followers of the Vedic literature. They think, they're under the impression that the form of Krishna and all the other forms that were mentioned here are manifestations of the mode of goodness. You know, it's like the ultimate is the impersonal Brahman. And everything, all these different forms of Krishna, they're manifestations of the, derivatives of, from the impersonal Brahman. But that's incorrect. That's incorrect. And Krishna addresses that point in the Bhagavad Gita. First off, he says in the end of the 14th chapter, I can only know the one line of that verse. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I used to know the whole verse, but anyway. But it means I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman. And elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in the 7th chapter, text 24, avyakta vyaktim apanam manyate mam babudaya padam bhavam ajanato manushana, no, padam bhavam ajanato mamavyam anutamam. He says that fools think that I have assumed this form and personality, but that's not the case. You know, this is, let me get the exact, I don't want to butcher the translation. Let me get you the proper translation here. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. This is what I was referring to. See, so it's, you know, Krishna's addressing this point in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. See, and he's not talking about the impersonal Brahma, because he just finished saying that the people, you know, people who think like that are fools, unintelligent. They think that he has assumed this personality. He's not. He hasn't assumed the personality. He is the personality. And that personality, he's going on to say, is, he refers to it here as his higher nature. It's imperishable and supreme. So that's in the 7th chapter. And then he also states, he reiterates this point in the 9th chapter, where he says, avajananti mam mudha, manusim tanam ashritam, param bhavam ajananto, mama bhuta maheshvaram. And in the 9th chapter, he gets a little bit heavier. He refers to him, here he refers to him as unintelligent. And in the 9th chapter, he refers to people in this category as fools. He says, fools deride me when I descend in this human form, because they don't know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. So it's an important point. It's a point that needs to be made, because, as I said, even people who are so-called following, well, they're following, but with not properly understanding the Vedic literatures, they have this misconception. It's clearly a misconception that the form of the Lord is material. It's completely spiritual. And, but it's not easy to understand. It's kind of like, it's not easy to understand. The people who are thinking like that, they need to be corrected but not completely condemned, because even some really big guns have misunderstood this point. To give a couple examples, one is Indra. Indra completely, I mean, everybody knows that pastime, the pastime of lifting of Govardhan Hill. How did that happen? Indra couldn't understand who Krishna was. He was totally didn't get it. You know, he thought that, who is this impudent boy? He's, you know, interrupting, he's causing the, disturbing the worship of this Indra Yajna they're going to perform. And, you know, he totally didn't understand who Krishna was, and which is why he actually tried to destroy Krishna and all the residents of Vrindavan. And everybody knows the rest of the story. So Indra is the king of heaven. I mean, he's not just some fool, you know, and he's not just another deva. There's 33 million devas. They all have their own planets. Indra is the king of the devas, and he totally didn't understand. What to speak of Indra? Indra is like a puny nothing compared to Lord Brahma in terms of lifespan. Indra lives about 300 million years. Brahma's lifespan is 300 trillion years. So if you do the math there, Brahma lives about 1 million times, approximately 1 million times longer than Indra. He's infinitely, not infinitely, but vastly superior position to even Indra. He got a little confused there too. You know, there's that pastime in the Krishna book, the Brahma Vimohana Lila, where he was observing Krishna's pastimes when he was here on the planet 5,000 years ago, and he was thinking, is this really Krishna? Is this really my Lord, who's just there like a little cowherd boy, and he's just playing with his cowherd boyfriends and just kind of playing around? Is that really him? I don't think so. You know, he was kind of, I don't know if I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I read the pastime. I can't remember if he was feeling a little doubtful, or if he just was feeling like he wanted to be a bit mischievous or what. But I think he was just a little bit kind of, well, I don't know, but I'm not really, let me just do something to really check and see. So, you know, he stole all the cowherd boys, and he hit him for just what was a moment of his time, but it was equivalent to a year of the time for the residents of Vrindavan and everything. And then Krishna expanded himself as all the cowherd boys and all the cows, and Brahma came back a moment later, and he was just like totally bewildered. He was totally bewildered. Wait a second, I just stole him. What's going on here, you know? And then he realized eventually what was going on, and he came and he offered prayers to Krishna. And he said in those prayers that, you know, other people may think they can understand. I can't. Anyway, it's very confidential. It's not like any, you know, any Tom, Dick, or Harry gets to understand the form of Krishna. So it's understandable that these, you know, people who are within the Vedic tradition, they don't understand, they have a misconception about who Krishna is and that his form is transcendental. So once again, as I said, they shouldn't be condemned, but we have to instruct. You know, they have to be educated. People need to be further educated to understand properly. Oh yeah, so in the purport here, I want to point out one of the glories of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says here twice in the purport, he makes kind of a similar point. He says, these multiforms are manifested by him, referring to Krishna, transcendentally according to the tastes of his multi-devotees. Okay, and then later, towards the end of the purport, he says, the conclusion is that the Lord has no material form, yet, according to the liking of different grades of the devotees, he simultaneously exists in multi-forms such as Ram, the Shringa, Varaha, Nārāyaṇa, and Mukunda. So Prabhupada's making a point there, and in preparation for the class, I was, you know, looking up some different references. I actually found a reference about Prabhupada in the purport just talks about Hanuman, so I'll say something about that in a second. And I was also reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that pastime about when Lord Chaitanya was with Venkatabhatta, and they were having this discussion. You know, Lord Chaitanya was Lord Chaitanya stayed with Venkatabhatta for 4 months in his home during the rainy season, so they got to be good friends, you know. I mean, he was an advanced devotee. He was a Ramanuja Sampradaya devotee, Sri Sampradaya, and but a real one, you know. So anyway, they were talking, and at one point Lord Chaitanya said, hey, how come you're a Lakṣmī, you know, how come she performed penances and austerities to get, you know, enter into the, because he was worshiping Lakṣmī Nārāyaṇ. That's in Sri Sampradaya, they worship Lakṣmī Nārāyaṇ supreme. So Lord Chaitanya was kind of kidding around with them and says, well, hey, if they're supreme, how come Lakṣmī was worshiping, you know, performing penances and austerities so she can enter into the rasa dance? You know, she's not very chaste. You know, he made a comment. And so Venkatabhatta says, no, it's the same person. You know, Narayan is the same person, but he acknowledged Krishna has certain very sweet attributes that, you know, make it attractive and like that. And anyway, they went back and forth a bit. One thing, Lord Chaitanya was kind of really needling him a bit. He made the point that, well, you know, even despite the fact that she performed these penances and austerities for hundreds of years, she was unsuccessful. It's not like she did it and she couldn't enter into the rasa dance because she wanted to keep that form as Lakṣmī. She wasn't prepared to actually follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Anyway, in the course of, you know, researching, and I found this statement here, which I will share with everybody. That's not it. Okay, yeah, this is something Lord Chaitanya said in the course of their conversation. Towards the conclusion of it, he says, there is no difference between the transcendental forms of the Lord. Different forms are manifested due to different attachments of different devotees. Then that's what we just heard here twice, Prabhupada say. That, you know, according to the tastes of his multi-devotees, and right towards the end of the purport he says, according to the liking of different grades of devotees. So my point is that a lot of times we hear Prabhupada say something, and he doesn't quote the reference. He doesn't cite the reference right then and there. But if you know, I found this enlivening when I came across this, because I thought, oh, here Lord Chaitanya is saying the same thing. Prabhupada saying in his purport, he's not saying where he got it from. He's just making the point. But you know, it's totally bona fide. Lord Chaitanya is making that statement right there. You know, different forms are manifested due to different attachments of different devotees. Actually, the Lord is one, but he appears in different forms just to satisfy his devotees. And that happens repeatedly, you know, for devotees who read Prabhupada's books, you know, carefully and become familiar with, you know, the different things that are stated in different parts of the Bhagavatam and like that. You quite often see Prabhupada, you read a purport and you think, it's not an original composition. It is, in the sense that, you know, Prabhupada wrote it, but he's pulling in from so many, you know, he's pulling in from what this Acharya said, what that Acharya said, what's stated in this part of the Bhagavatam. It's always bona fide. It's always bona fide. Whether you, Prabhupada's directly citing it, you know, his reference, and saying in such and such place in the Bhagavatam it says it, or he just says it, it's totally, you can feel completely relaxed, confident, and comfortable that whatever coming out of Prabhupada's mouth or whatever's coming from Prabhupada's dictaphone is completely Krishna conscious, bona fide. So that was something I like. Now, on this point, he mentions in the purport about how Hanuman, he gives that example in relation to the point of according to the taste of the multi-devotees. He says, understood that Hanuman, the great devotee of Lord Rāmacandra, said that he knew Nārāyaṇa, the husband of Lakṣmī, and Ram, the husband of Sītā, are one and the same, and that there's no difference between Lakṣmī and Sītā, but for himself, he liked the form of Lord Rāma. So I tried to find that pass on. I'm assuming it was something from the Ramayana, but I was unsuccessful. But I found something kind of similar to it, or certainly related to it. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a very nice pastime that took place between well, it was Lord Chaitanya was at the home of Sarvabhauma Acharya. This was, I think, just right after that. What's it called? Sataparaha. You know, they had this like, Lord Chaitanya was exhibiting different forms for different devotees. He was reciprocating with the devotees. Anyway, at one point he started like, you know, exchanging with different devotees. And so at one point he started, Murari Gupta was there. Murari Gupta was a childhood friend of Lord Chaitanya. He's actually a devotee who wrote the first biography of Lord Chaitanya. And I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Does anybody remember? Anyway, he wrote the first biography of Lord Chaitanya. Anyway, so he was very close. He was a very close associate of Lord Chaitanya. He used to go to see Lord Chaitanya every year at Jagannath Puri for the Rath Yatra festival. So at one point in the kind of conversation, you could say, Lord Chaitanya embraced Murari Gupta. He was there at Sarvabhauma Acharya's house with a bunch of different devotees. He embraced Murari Gupta. I'll read at this point for a few verses. He said, and began to speak about his firm faith and devotional service. This was heard by all the devotees. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 15, okay, what I'm reading. And he goes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, previously I induced Murari Gupta again and again to be allured by Lord Krishna. I said to him, my dear Gupta, Lord Sri Krishna, Vrajendra Kumar, is the supreme sweetness. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the origin of all incarnations, and the source of everything. He is pure, transcendental love itself, and he is the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. He is like a mine of gems. He is expert at everything, very intelligent and sober. He is the summit of all transcendental humors. So Lord Chaitanya is trying to make it very attractive here. His character is very sweet, and his pastimes are melodious. He is expert in intelligence, and thus he enjoys all his pastimes in mellows. I then requested Murari Gupta, worship Krishna and take shelter of him, but for his service nothing appeals to the mind. In this way, he heard from me again and again. So Lord Chaitanya is there. He's speaking to, he's addressing the group of devotees there. In this way, he heard from me again and again. By my influence, his mind was a little converted. Murari Gupta then replied, I am your servant and your order carrier. I have no independent existence. Once again, this is Lord Chaitanya relating this incident that happened previously. He's addressing all the devotees, and he's describing to them what had happened previously when he was trying to encourage Murari Gupta to become a Krishna Bhakta as opposed to a Ram Bhakta. That's what's going on here, okay? So after this, Murari Gupta went home and spent the whole night thinking how he would have to give up the association of Raghunath, Lord Rāmacandra. Thus he was overwhelmed. Murari Gupta then began to pray at the lotus feet of Lord Rāmacandra. He prayed that death would come at night because it was not possible for him to give up the service of the lotus feet of Raghunath. Thus Mararigupta cried the entire night. There was no rest for his mind. Therefore he could not sleep, but stayed awake the entire night. In the morning, Mararigupta came to see me. Catching hold of my feet and crying, he submitted an appeal. Mararigupta said, I have sold my head unto the lotus feet of Raghunath. I cannot withdraw my head, for that would give me too much pain. It is not possible for me to give up the service of Raghunath's lotus feet. At the same time, if I do not do so, I shall break your order. What can I do? In this way, Mararigupta appealed to me, saying, You are all merciful, so kindly grant me this mercy. Let me die before you, so that all my doubts will be finished. Hearing this, I became very happy. I then raised Mararigupta and embraced him. I said to him, All glories to you, Mararigupta. Your method of worship is very firmly fixed, so much so that even upon my request, your mind did not turn. So Lord Chaitanya was, I don't know if he was testing, I guess he was testing him. I think that's the proper way to understand it, that Lord Chaitanya was testing him. He wasn't genuinely trying to get him to convert from a Ram Bhakta to a Krishna Bhakta. He was testing him, and apparently Mararigupta passed the test. Lord Chaitanya was very pleased with his determination to remain a Ram Bhakta. You know, he didn't say, well, no, he didn't get upset with him. He was quite the contrary. All right, so much so that even upon my request, your mind did not turn. That's a little bit more here. The servitor must have love and affection for the lotus feet of the Lord exactly like this. Even if the Lord wants separation, a devotee cannot abandon the shelter of his lotus feet. Prabhupada says something really far out here. I'll read it. The last part of the purport. It says, in a firm relationship with the Lord, the devotee does not give up the Lord's service under any circumstance. As far as the Lord himself is concerned, if the devotee chooses to leave, does anybody know the rest of that? What? Yeah, that's the verse. The Lord brings him back again, dragging him by the hair. That's what Prabhupada says. Krishna doesn't let his devotees go away. He brings him back again, dragging him by the hair. Just to test your firm faith in your Lord, I requested you again and again to change your worship from Lord Rāmacandra to Krishna. In this way, I congratulated Mararigupta, saying, indeed, you are the incarnation of Hanuman. So that's how he's Hanuman. He's the incarnation of Hanuman. Consequently, you are the eternal servant of Lord Rāmacandra. Why should you give up the worship of Lord Rāmacandra and his lotus feet? So, as I said, that's kind of... He says, Lord Chaitanya continues, I accept this Mararigupta as my life and soul. When I hear of his humility, it perturbs my life. And then he goes on to... So, related to, he's Hanuman. He's the incarnation of Hanuman, so I thought it would be appropriate to kind of share that pastime with everybody, since I couldn't exactly locate the pastime Prabhupada specifically is referring to in the purport. But what do we learn from that? Well, one thing is that Lord Chaitanya was very pleased by his determination to continue that devotion to Lord Rāmacandra. So determination in devotion is important, and we're being given an incredible opportunity here, in ISKCON, to take advantage of the transcendental form of the Lord. To make this really a practical class in some way, it's very practical, because it is a very practical point. It's a very important theoretical point. I mean, not theoretical, but philosophical point, and it's also a very important practical point. And the practicality is there. If everybody can turn their head to the right or to the left and look forward, that's the practical thing. Prabhupada has given us, at all the ISKCON temples throughout the world, the worship of the deity. And that's the transcendental form of the Lord, not a material form. We have the transcendental form of the Lord. So Prabhupada's giving us an opportunity to develop our attachment, our love and devotion right there. And we should try to, it's an important, very important thing to try to take full advantage of that. And I mean, here in New Dwarka, to a certain extent, that's going on. I mean, this worship has been going on for over 50 years here. How many? Let's see. Dwarkanath were installed, I think, in 68, 69. So 69, that's 55 years, right? 55 years. And Rukmini Dwarkadish, I believe in 1970? 71. So that's 53 years. So that's a long time. And it's still going on nicely, to the credit of all the pujaris here. I think we have over 30 altogether, which is really awesome. And yeah, so I think I had two things that I had two things I wanted to share with everybody about deity worship. I think the first one was just a paragraph from the chapter 12 in the Bhagavad Gita, where it talks about deity worship. But that's so basic and preliminary, I'm going to skip that one. And I'm going to go right to the really super nectar one that I have for everybody, which is an excerpt from the lecture that Prabhupada gave at the installation of Rukmini Dwarkanath here in Los Angeles back in 1969. Correct? 69. So this is what Prabhupada said on that occasion. He said, Krishna is Param Brahman, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Purusham Shashvatam. And therefore, one has to keep himself very purified. Otherwise, you cannot touch Krishna. That is not possible. It is fire. So you have to become fire. And how to become fire? Fire, you are also fire, but now you are covered by this material body. Therefore, you have to spiritualize this body by purificatory process. The same principle, just like the iron rod. It is iron, but you put it in the fire, it becomes warm, warmer, warmer, then red hot. Then it is fire. Similarly, by this process, chanting process, by regulative, you are becoming warmer, warmer, warmer. And when you are fully, when you fully become red hot, warm, then your body is as good as Krishna's. Not in the sense you become as powerful as Krishna, but you become perfect and loving. Krishna's, in the loving, you become, purified, and you can perfectly love Krishna. So that's, and I think in that sense it's meant your body is as good as Krishna's. So you have to keep, we have to keep ourselves always in the fire of Krishna consciousness. Then everything is all right. He says, otherwise it will become dull. And it will, and now he's referring to deity worship, and it will be simply idol worship. That's all. That is the difference between idol worship and deity worship. If there is no life, then it is idol worship. And when there is life, feeling, where is Krishna? Oh, here is Krishna. I have to serve Krishna. I have to dress him. I have to serve Radharani. She is here. Oh, I must do it very nicely. And as far as possible, decorate her to the best capacity. And Prabhupada says, in this way, if you always feel Krishna consciousness, then you are fire. The same example, keeping with the fire. And if you think it is a brass-made doll, I mean to say, and he quotes this verse, Yayatamam papajante tam sataiva bhajamiham. If you think this is a brass-made idol, then it will remain a brass-made idol to you forever. But if you elevate yourself to the higher platform of Krishna consciousness, then Krishna, this Krishna, will talk with you. This, and he probably repeats it, and he says, this Krishna will talk with you. I'm tempted to ask if any of the pujaris have had Krishna talk to him, but I think it's probably too confidential to even ask that, so I won't. Then Prabhupada goes, there is Vamsi Das Babaji Maharaj. He was talking with his deity. And then he probably changes the example. He says, just like this Madan Mohan, he was talking with Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami at that time had no temple. He was hanging his deity on the tree. He had his deity in a little bag, and he would hang the bag on the tree. So Madan Mohan was talking with him. Sanatan, you are bringing me all these dry chapatis. I heard Prabhupada describe elsewhere. It wasn't even chapati. It was what's called butter. It's just some dough. A flour with water, and you kind of, it's dough, it's like a little ball, and you put it out in the sun, and when it dries, that's what he was offering. So it wasn't even a chapati. So you are bringing me these dry chapatis, and it is stale, and you don't give me even a little salt. How can I eat? Sanatana Goswami said, Sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer you. You kindly accept. I cannot move. Old man. So Prabhupada says, so Krishna had to eat that. And Prabhupada chuckles, he laughed. Because the bhakta is offering. He cannot refuse. Ye mam bhaktya prayachati. Real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. What you have got, what is your value? And what is the value of your things? It is nothing. Therefore, real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten, fallen, but, and Prabhupada starts crying at that point in the lecture. He becomes overwhelmed by emotion and he's weeping. He says, I have brought this thing for you. Please take. And he goes, this will be accepted. Then he kind of composes himself and he says, don't be puffed up. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. This is my request. Thank you very much. And that was it. He had to stop speaking. So, yeah, that says it all right there. And I think I could end on that point and ask if there's any questions or comments. Rabindranath Prabhu.
Yeah, you mentioned Murari Gupta. He was, Lord Chaitanya told him to worship Krishna and he couldn't give up worshiping Rāmacandra, and so Lord Chaitanya said that was all right. But aren't there also devotees who worship Lord Rāmacandra and then they meet the devotees of Krishna and they start worshiping Krishna?
The devotees who were worshiping Lord Rāmacandra and then they started worshiping Krishna?
Yeah, Krishna. They start worshiping Krishna because they meet they meet the devotees or whatever.
Well, can you give an example?
That's what I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. Well, I can think of, I remember another devotee who was worshiping, who was also a Ram Bhakta. I believe it was the brother of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Huh? Yeah, Anupam, right. Yeah, Anupam. He was, but he stuck. Yeah, he stuck to his guns as well. He didn't become a Krishna. I don't know. If maybe somebody else knows. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. We're looking for an example of a Ram Bhakta who got preached to and became a Krishna Bhakta.
I have seen in Mayapur, sometimes when these big festivals, the followers of Lord Rāmacandra, a lot of devotees of Lord Rāmacandra, they come with a bow and arrows and everything, and they come to the Mayapur mandir and they are actually, worshiping Radha Madhava. They go and offer the prayers. But that's just something not from the scriptures. I've seen that. But now I have a comment, Prabhu. In this past time about, Murari Gupta and Lord Chaitanya trying to induce him to worship Krishna, I have seen, from a long time ago I learned this as trying to convey the message to other people, that even God himself personally cannot change somebody else if that person is fixed in whichever belief they have. You can take that. Even atheists, if you're already fixed, if you already have some taste right there, no one can shake you, not even Krishna. So my conclusion was that, at least for me, that respectfully we convey our messages in a kind way, and if they become attracted, then yes, of course we would like to see other people to come. But because I have seen sometimes, for many years, many different varieties of devotees who are along with me, they try to see, I'm going to bring him back here. I can appreciate that enthusiasm, but actually, sometimes it doesn't work like that. So just, understanding where they're at and praying to Krishna, maybe this particular soul, from whichever belief they have, they become attracted by your behavior, by your conduct, by your understanding of God in a different way. If they feel attracted, then yes. Otherwise, it will be just waste of time thinking, I'm going to do it. It actually becomes like a false ego type. I'm going to do it. Krishna himself cannot do it. He tried very kindly in this past time with Murari Gupta, and it didn't happen.
Yeah. it's not a fault. And I was like, Murari Gupta, he was a Ram Bhakta, and he was determined to stay a Ram Bhakta. That's not a fault. We didn't come up with an example, but if there would be, somebody had an example of a devotee, somebody who's like a Ram Bhakta or a Nārayaṇa Bhakta, and they became a Krishna Bhakta, I don't think that's a fault. But if somebody, say, for instance, a Shiva Bhakta, if there is such a thing, a worshiper of Shiva, and they don't want to become a Krishna Bhakta, when they're, that's a fault. They should become a Krishna Bhakta. Or they should at least understand that they worship Shiva as the greatest devotee of Krishna. In other words, as Venkata Bhatta said, Narayan and Krishna, they're the same person. That's why he gave that argument to Lord Chaitanya that, no, Lakshmi is not being unchaste by worshipping, by wanting to enter into the rasa dance and be with Krishna. Krishna and Narayan, they're the same person. Lord Chaitanya didn't argue that point. He didn't say, no. No, he accepted that. See, so they're the same person. So it's a matter of taste. It's not a fault. It's not incorrect for a devotee to, want to worship Narayan or Nrsingadev or, Ram. That's okay. It's all good. The expression, all good. In that case, it's all good. But it's not all good if you're worshiping, Shiva or Brahma in preference to Krishna. That's a fault. That's a mistake. Yeah, Prabhu.
Prabhu, for example, the same Murari Gupta, which is Hanuman, so takes part in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya. We know that the Lord Chaitanya Bhaktas, they go to the spiritual world, there is a space for Navadvitam, and also they take part in the pastimes of Lord Krishna as well. So, in one sense, even though he's a Rama Bhakta, but in the other sense also, he takes part of the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna, also in the spiritual world. So, and definitely he has a swarup also in Goloka Vrindavan, because he's taking part of the pastimes of Lord Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. So how do we understand this? Because he is Ram Bhakta, he's not giving up his worship for Lord Rāmacandra, he's refusing to worship Lord Krishna, but at the same time he takes part of all these lilas, Gauranga Lila, Krishna Lila, Ram Lila.
Yeah, you don't understand it. It's inconceivable. But, because it seems like a contradiction, right? How could he be, in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and simultaneously on the Ram planet? Because each of these different incarnations or expansions, they have their own Vaikuntha planet. But it's possible. Prabhupada says it's, and it's just one of these things that I guess gets revealed to you when you get to the proper level of Krishna consciousness. It could be revealed to you. I know that's Prema Sankirtan's desire. He wants to. No, I'm not supposed to tell anybody. Okay. Go ahead.
In the Brahma-saṁhitā, there's a verse, Yankrodakama Sahaya Pranayadiviti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhavai Sanchintyatasya Sadrisintanuma Purete Govindanadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. It says that, the translation, I adore the Primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation. So the Supreme Lord, he reciprocates with the call of the devotee and the way that you want to worship him. He manifests himself. It's just a different flavor. And as far as why is this happening, these leelas are very, sometimes can become complex, but it's there.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
It sounds like, how could that be? It is,
Special arrangements
you can
to
do
have
it. You
different
can
rasas.
participate in more than one leela, apparently.
The same Prahlad Maharaj, the same, right? Because Prahlad Maharaj is worshiping Lord Nrsimhadev. Oh, my guessing is he's going to the planet of Lord Nrsimhadev. He's also Vasudeva Datta, and also taking part of the Krishna's pastimes.
Prahlad Maharaj?
Yeah.
I heard the first part. He's going to the planet Lord Nrsingadev. Yeah, and what was the second part?
And then he comes as a Vasudeva Datta during the pastimes of Lord Gauranga. We understand also that he goes to Krishna Lila.
Okay. So, good for them. I mean, they're fortunate. It doesn't, it's possible. Krishna can do it, make it happen. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.